today we're talking about Vintage. Vintage is a game in which you grow, produce, and sell and store wine.
Wine.
Something that I have to be honest, I know little to nothing about.
I know nothing about it.
Well, I mean, I know what I've read. I guess this game has taught me a little bit about it, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's a Euro game in a sense where you're going to go out and you're producing goods and then taking them and trying to sell them for the most points, which is money in this game.
Yep.
Here we go. All right, here's the board in which each of the players starts out. Over here you can see each player has an estate that they have in their color, yellow, orange, white, or gray, and they have their vineyards. They have 3 vineyards planted each one, yellow, purple, and green. You need 3 vineyards in one of these estates for it to start producing wine at all. And then players are going to, they each start with 3 victory points, and they have their own little board that we'll be taking a closer look at later on. And then players are going to have 4 workers and 1 overseer of their color that they're going to be placing on the board in turn order. They're going to be placing them in these spots. And as you can see, for example, here, this gives you a white or a yellow cube added to your vineyard. And to place it on the first one, I just put a guy there. But if someone wants to do this action again, they're going to have to put 2 workers there, and then 3 workers and 4 workers. The 3s are shaded because you only use them in a 3 or 4 player game. But you can always use your overseer and put him in a spot, and he will always allow you, no matter what the numbers are. So what do these spots do? Over here, these 8 spots, which are all 1, allow you to take or to play a special card. So you can, when you take a card, you can take either one of these 4 cards here or the top card from the deck. You can play these cards. These cards are very powerful. Down here, this allows you to produce a green or a pink cube in your vineyard. This allows you to produce a yellow or white. Then you see purple, and then there's 1 spot where you can produce a black grape. Now, when you produce these grapes and add them to your vineyards on the board, let's say I add a pink and then a white. You need, like I said, you need 3 different colors to get a vineyard going. When you fill the whole thing up, you will increase the value of the wine that comes from that vineyard. Right now it's a 2, so I would increase it to a 3 once I'm completely filled. Black grapes can only be placed in these 4 vineyards here in the middle, and when you add a black grape to a vineyard, it automatically increases by 1 in its value, and then if I fill the whole thing up, it would increase another 1 in value, so those grapes would have a value of 6. And then there's more vineyards over here, but the black ones can only be planted in the middle. This number right here allows you to go first next turn. If no one takes that, the same player will continue to be first. Let's move over here to this side. Right here, this allows you, and if you notice here at the top, that you can't go, these are the only actions you can't take twice. The rest you can take twice. But when you take this action here, you can build a new vineyard. Well, there's spots for new vineyards all over the board, and the cost of starting a new vineyard is victory points. So for example, to build this vineyard here, it would require 3 victory points that I would have to pay. Now, if I get enough grapes into that area, well then at the end of the game, I'm gonna get those victory points back. And so these vineyards here in the middle, they cost 4, they're harder to start, and there's also, you want to be the first one because these are a value of 3, these are a value of 4, but the 2 higher ones are both a value of 5. So the first person to get their estates going. And another good reason to get an estate going is because once you get an estate out, then you also will receive another worker that you will be able to use with that estate. So you can have up to 6 workers. Then you can produce wine, and this is the most important function of the game, producing wine. When you produce wine, you can do it at all your estates that you have, and you have to have the estate to be functioning, and each player has 1 barrel of rum to start with, but you can get more barrels of rum. Basically, at the top of the game board, it will tell you, for example, this estate produces 3 barrels. So I can either have it produce 3 barrels of rum and fill my rum spots, or I can use one of those barrels of rum if I have 3 different colors here so that it works. to produce 3 barrels of wine. When I produce these 3 barrels of wine, I'm going to take 3 barrels of wine from a huge pile of barrels that the game provides. I'm going to take these 3 barrels of wine and I'm going to put them in the estate. And I'm going to put a number with them to show the value. Now the value of the estate is the number that's underneath it plus whatever the current value of the season is. So you can see here there's a green chip in round 1. I'm going to add 2 to that value. So those grapes that I was specifically showing you would now be a value of 7. In round 2 they would only be a value of 5. In round 3 they'd be a value of 6. These green numbers will range from 0 to 2. So I'm going to put those barrels in the estate with the number chip on top of them to show the value of those barrels. I'll put them in the estate. And later on, I'm going to use another action here, which you can see right here, that will allow me to move my boat. Each player has a boat that they will be moving up and down the river from spot to spot. They'll be picking up those packages of goods, and they'll be placing them here in their 3 different holds of the boat. When these packages get back to your warehouse or the port, you will put the number here, and you'll put the barrels that you have of that type in your warehouse, how many you have. Now you're going to put them on one of 2 sides, ruby or tawny. And the reason you do this is because later on when you decide to age your barrels, this action, and basically get points for them, you are going to say, okay, I'm going to move these barrels and get points. You will then roll a die, which has numbers 1 through 3 on it, and that number will be added to the value. So let's say I roll 3. These are 9. I look over here on this side and I see that 6 to 9 goes in this column here, and I have 3 of them. And I filled this column completely up, so I just scored 2 victory points. If I didn't fill it up, I would just leave those 2 there and wait till I filled it up later on to get the points. If I had gotten a value of over 10, I can trade in 2 for 3 victory points, and a value even higher than that will give me 4 victory points. Otherwise, they just go down here into this bottom spot, and I need to get at least 4 barrels to get 1 victory point. And so that side's completely different than this side, which has a value of, if it's less than or equal to 4, you need 5 barrels for 1. 5 to 7 gives you 2 victory points. 8 to 10 gives you 3. And greater than 11 can give you 4. But you need 2 of them. So the numbers are different, but depending on where you initially stored your barrels. And so this will continue to happen. I would be remiss if I didn't mention how useful these are, giving you extra barrels, adding 1 to your die roll, allowing your vineyards to produce more barrels, letting you sell barrels immediately for a lot of points, being able to move your ship down the river very quickly. There's all different cards that you can have that you can play the game with. And so after 7 rounds, the game is over, and whoever has the most points is the winner. You will then score points for any vineyard that you have. Now, that's one side of the board. The other side of the board is very similar. What I just showed you was the advanced game. The simple game is very similar, but you'll notice that there's fewer grapes that you need to get. You only need to get yellow and green. There's fewer actions. There's a completely different deck of cards that come with this. And basically the game here is about quickly building vineyards. It's almost played the exact same way. There's just less going on. But you can play this way, and again, whoever has the most points is the winner. All right, I think I have to say I like the artwork of the box. I think it's a pretty good... you're gonna get tired of holding it up there. Yes. It has that antique flair to it. The rules of the game could have been written better. There was one page of rules that we agonized over for 20 minutes or so, about the actual producing the rum, which then was turned into wine.
That was difficult to understand.
I mean, I sat there and I was like, wow, I passed it to another guy. He didn't know. We all looked at it and finally we kind of figured it out looking through the rule book. That might just be the English translation.
Yeah.
I don't know. The game itself, once you get going, plays fairly quickly. But at first, you really don't know what you're doing. If you never played before, it's going to throw you off because you're just like, I have no idea how to produce. But knowing what I know at the beginning of the game, I could do much better.
Yeah, I think the point spread in our game was actually pretty close. It wasn't there wasn't a definite winner and there wasn't a definite loser until the actual final scoring. So I think you do have to learn as you grow. as far as what to do, what's the best optimal moves, and I think depending on who you play with, the best moves are going to change from game to game. So I think there are probably some legs to the game, but until you actually try it out, I don't know how far the legs will go.
A couple things I liked. I like the worker placement where whoever does it first gets it cheaper, and you have to use extra workers to take it. That was a neat idea, and I like the fact that you can take and play the cards. And only so many people could play cards, because you had to take that into effect. And the way that the wine was sold at the end, where you roll a die and add it, and depending which side you put it on, depending where it went, that's a really neat mechanic. I don't think I've seen that in any game.
Yeah, and it adds kind of a micro level, maybe not a micro level, but a definite level to decisions on what kind of wine you're going to be selling. So I think it's cool. It added a little bit more flavor, if I can not punishly use that. So that word, but I like the game. One of the things I did like about it is the fact where you had to have the ability to produce all the different kinds of wines before your production center actually went online. I liked that. You had to vary what you produce before you're actually in the business, so to speak.
Now, what I didn't like, I feel like the game has some very obvious things that you must do. There's no way you cannot open both of your extra wineries or vineyards. You need to open both of them. You're doing the same thing as everybody else. You're producing wine and going and picking it up and taking it back. It's not like there's a whole huge amount of variety. You could try to do a bunch of cheaper wine fast, or take longer and get the better wine. But in the long run, I think each game is going to play fairly the same.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think you do have to do is you need to be the first or one of the first in one of those expansion sections to have a go. If you're last in both sections, I think you're going to have a very difficult time procuring first place. You have to kind of make sure that those more expensive wines, you're in that market. I don't think either of us really got into the market on that.
Nah, I'm all for the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Cheap stuff now.
He was producing the cardboard box stuff. So, but you've got to get your foot in the door on those more expensive wines. Otherwise, I think you'll be out.
Now, one thing that people will debate about in this game, I think, is the cards. The cards seem unbalanced. Not unbalanced, but some cards seem awesome.
Yeah,
and other cards are like, eh. I mean, there's no card I thought was bad, but there were some cards that were basically free points.
Yeah.
And there was some debate that these cards were quite valuable. And while I said, no, it's not that big of a deal, I could see how some cards are much more effective. And some cards are not worth anything at the beginning of the game, but they're still sitting there.
Yeah.
And other cards at the end of the game aren't worth anything. I don't know. My overall opinion of the game is decent. But there was nothing that grabbed me that I would want to come back and keep playing it. Because I felt like I enjoyed my playings of it, but why would I want to come back and do more of it when I don't see that there's a lot of branching off, a lot of different strategies that I can take? I feel like any game that I'll play in the future will just kind of mirror my experiences I've already had with the game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this one, I don't want to give it a thumbs down, but I'm going to give it a very big meh of a thumb in a sense that it's not a bad game, it's good, but I don't see anything here that's so unique and original that I wouldn't play another game that also produced goods.
Yeah.
It worked with the theme. And I'll get you get a couple plays out of it, but I don't know that we'll go much farther than that.
Yeah, I think maybe wine aficionados will take it for the not nostalgic, but the thematic element that's there. I mean,
maybe
the theme fits the mechanics well. I don't think that there's any negative aspect there. I think the theme fits well. I think that I think it might have more legs. Again, if you play with the same people, then I think you will get stuck in a rut, as he was talking about earlier. And I do understand the point that he's making in that there are certain things that you must do, and you're going to have to do them every single game. So there is a monotony, I guess, to it. How each player interacts with one another, I think, will be the difference between plays. So I'm at the same level with. I mean,
They're going to quote us, this game gets 2 mehs.
Yeah, two there. But I don't know. The theme didn't really hit for me. I'm not that interested in wine producing. I mean, it was interesting to kind of get a feel of how it worked, but that's not going to pull me back to play another game. It's just not down my road. But again, it's another worker placement game, and I've enjoyed worker placement games in the past, and this was okay, but it just wasn't. Wow, it was just okay. What's next?
Woo.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.